Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Welcome to the Deen Duty podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Elsayed, and this is the stories of civil servants in the Bay Area. And this is a podcast, a project put on by the Bay Area Muslim Council. We're so excited to bring with us today Aziz Akbari. Thank you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Now, of course, Aziz, you're the president of the Alameda County District Water Board.
Correct.
And we want to hear your story of civil service. How did you get there?
Yeah. So, kind of starting from the beginning, I first moved to Fremont when I was 7. It was just before 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, my parents were really concerned about what this meant for our place in our community and this new society that we didn't really have deep roots in. And so there was a city council meeting that took place just shortly after the 9/11 attacks. And we felt like it was our duty to go to that meeting, show our presence there, make sure that we made it known that we're part of this community. And I just remember the outpouring of love and support at that event. Um, Leadership from across the city was there, community members from across the city were there. And it had a major impact on me in making me feel so welcome and accepted here in Fremont. And I wanted to make sure that I found a way to give back to the community that gave me so much. I'd been involved in politics for quite some time. I would volunteer on campaigns for Congressman Pete Stark and then City Council member Bill Harrison and a bunch of other candidates as well while I was in junior high and high school. And then I graduated from high school in 2012.
Wait, okay, before you graduate,
Sure.
can we go back?
Yeah.
So I just want to get into the head of a junior high school student
Yeah.
who's volunteering in political like, how did you even know that was a thing?
Yeah. Uh, it's funny. I always read like the local newspaper. I was just so interested and involved in local stuff. My parents had no idea that I took this interest either. It was really just self-motivated. Um, I felt like Fremont had so much to offer. We would always call Fremont a bedroom community. People would come and live here, but they wouldn't work here. But we're in the middle of Silicon Valley, and so I always found that to be kind of this kind of mismatch where we've got all of this tech and innovation happening around us, but nothing in Fremont in particular. And so
Mm.
I was looking for ways that we could bring some of that innovation to Fremont because I knew I wanted to live here long term. I was hoping that I could find a job here after I graduated. And so it kind of led me down that path. And I took a lot of interest in not just local politics, but national and international politics as well. My parents were very active in protesting against the Iraq War and Afghanistan War, and so I took an interest in a lot of federal issues as well, and trying to see that we have a more progressive stance where we're non-interventionist, we're not perpetuating war, especially in other countries that. Where the United States has had some detrimental impacts over the years.
Of course. So would you say that your interest really stemmed from that initial town hall that you mentioned? I mean, it, because frankly, that's not a typical reaction, after 9/11, as you
Right.
know. I
Yeah.
mean, Islamophobia was on the rise. I mean,
Right.
that's an understatement to say that. And most communities probably were like lashing out more against the Muslim population. So it really sounds like this is coming from a place of gratitude, wanting to give back, wanting to support.
Definitely.
How? I mean, that's
I th
remarkable.
I think gratitude is exactly the right word because I would see on the news other communities where, Islamophobia was rampant, and then I would compare that to our community where everybody knew we were Muslim and everybody loved us for that. We felt like this diverse community in Fremont was richer because of that diversity, and we were accepted. you know, I just loved growing up here. I felt like I had kind of the best of all worlds. I went to great schools. I felt safe in my neighborhood. I knew all of my neighbors, and it would be even simple things like when we would cook, we would share it with our neighbors, and vice versa. When they would make something, they would share it with us as well. And so we always had a lot of kind of cross community interactions as well. I loved growing up here. That's not to say I didn't face my own share of Islamophobic
Of course,
remarks
yeah.
and attacks. I think every person, every Muslim person, and even every person who was brown or had a beard, um, we've all experienced post 9/11 America. But I just felt like I had it easier because I lived in this great community.
Amazing. So you're involved in the community, you're involved in civic life at a very young age,
Mhm.
and then you go to high school.
Yeah.
So sorry, I cut you off there, but
Yeah,
continue.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to high school. I was kind of a shy kid growing up. In high school, my parents really encouraged me to join speech and debate. And that's where I really got to open up. And so I
Mhm.
got to learn how to practice public speaking, and beyond that, how to practice parliamentary style debate. And so it's not just about you kind of going on a diatribe and sharing your ideas, but it's how do you defend those ideas and how do you reason with someone who's coming from a completely different perspective to try them win them over, if not entirely, at least get them to move from their position. I found that to be a life changing experience, truly life changing. And I actually still meet with that teacher regularly.
Oh
She's
wow.
she and I are in a Rotary club together in Niles Rotary. Her name is Miss Deb Pavlisi. She was my speech and debate
Wow.
coach for 4 years, and I really credit her with helping open up my eyes to these opportunities to learn more and collaborate more. And I think that coupled with my interest in politics just led me down this road to decide that, hey, I want to make a career out of this.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, that really speaks to the power of mentorship is that
Definitely.
someone opened the door. I mean, I think you mentioned earlier that probably your parents did not know about these opportunities or that this even was possible for you.
Oh, yeah.
But you had someone who kind of said, "Hey, you look like you have a promising, career, or you have some potential in you.
Yeah.
Let me guide you to something that you might be interested in."
Right. Yeah. And I don't think she knew what she was guiding me to, but she was really helping open up those doors for me and open up my mind to different ideas. And a lot of my teachers and mentors through school, through college, and even just other community members really helped guide me in that way. And I was very fortunate to have parents and family who supported me no matter what, even if they didn't quite understand what I was trying to do.
Right?
They were like, "Hey, if this is what you want to do, let's jump in 110%."
Wow.
And so I'm very fortunate in that way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think there's something to be said about, especially in the Muslim community, about the way that politics or civic life, even at large, works back home
Oh yeah.
versus coming to the US and seeing, things are actually quite different.
Yeah.
And was there ever any tension around that or any
Oh,
like uncles or
definitely.
cousins or, people giving you a hard time or
I mean, politics is a dirty word. My family comes from India, and if you look at the South Asian continent, going into politics is seen as like uh, not a great career.
right.
There's a lot of corruption back in those countries as well, and so I think the idea of making a career out of politics is almost anathema to why a lot of our families came to the United States. They
True.
wanted to
True.
escape a lot of that,
That's true.
a lot of those issues. But you're totally right. In the U.S., I think politics just works a little bit differently. Definitely not perfect.
Yeah.
Um,
Not to say
not
there's no corruption.
exactly, exactly. I think corruption takes a different face here.
Sure.
But the idea of getting to work on local issues and actually having that local control is kind of unique to this system. And the ability for a young person like myself to get involved at such a young age is also pretty unique. Even to California and the Bay Area specifically, where we really value youth.
Mhm.
We share all these stories of like these young founders going and starting tech companies at such a young age. We have a different perspective on youth here, and I wanted to really lean into that, but in a different space, in the political space, where young people are often left out of the story, we're marginalized. Generally, folks my age are not really involved. Maybe they'll vote, but beyond that, there isn't as much of engagement at that level because you're busy with school and you're starting your career and things
Right.
like that. And so you have a lot of um, other priorities at that point. But if there's a great quote that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I think for young people, for Muslims, for immigrants, that's very much the case. If you're not there to defend yourself, and if you don't have a seat at that table to offer your perspective, then other people will take advantage of that.
Yeah. And so you were proactive in getting involved. And let's talk about the young age that you were when
Yeah.
you decided to get involved.
Yeah. So I graduated high school in 2011. I moved to Los Angeles to go to USC for school. Typical kind of brown boy, like, I'm studying engineering there. You know the story of like, hey, you get to pick between engineer, doctor, lawyer.
Exactly.
And so I decided I'm going to study mechanical engineering. I came home for summer vacation in 2012, and I again started reading the local paper. At that time, it was called the Argus. Um, and I realized, oh, there's a mayoral election coming up. I looked at the candidates who are running, and all of them were existing city council members who had been there for uh, all of them between 4 to 8 years on council. And I felt like they were kind of missing the mark on some opportunities that I saw for Fremont, that I kind of touched on earlier. We're a bedroom community, but we have great talent locally. We had a lot of um, open commercial space and industrial space. This was also the time when there was a factory here called Numi. It was a partnership between Toyota and GM, and during the recession, they closed that factory. There was a statistic, and I don't know how accurate this was, but it kind of made its way around the community. 1 in 3 people were either directly or indirectly impacted by the shuttering of Numi
Wow.
in Fremont. And so that was a really kind of cataclysmic event within our city. And so again, I was trying to push for ways that we could utilize that manufacturing facility again. That's when Tesla came into, of which I'm not taking any credit for that, but we were going through those conversations at the time of how do we better utilize the space and how do we attract industry into the city. One point that I think a lot of people don't know about Fremont, up until I think it was about 1992, nearly every Apple device was manufactured or at least put together here in Fremont
Wow.
before they offshored most of their manufacturing facilities to Asia. And so Fremont's always had this kind of core manufacturing base, and we saw post-recession that was leaving the city. And so that really got me interested in, how do we envision the future of Fremont? Because I wanted to come back home after graduation, but I need to make sure that I can find a job here, that it's actually
Yeah.
a city worth returning to. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. I'm gonna run for mayor of Fremont when I'm 18 years old. Fresh face, kind of didn't have any political connections at that point either. Just a young idealist trying to make my mark on the world.
And remarkable. I mean, when I heard that, when you first told me, I was shocked. Um, what possesses an 18-year-old to think that they can be mayor of their town, and to have that level of I can do it. Like not only is this something I want to do, it's something I can do. And in fact, you're talking about policies that will genuinely impact the life of the people in the city, and you care deeply about it, and you have point of view, you have an opinion. I mean, how do you get there?
Uh, naivete.
Okay. That's the
You
secret.
that's the secret. I think, uh, I was so fresh into this that I didn't know what I didn't know.
I see.
And so I'm looking at this as, "Hey, I'm just gonna give folks the option to vote for me, and it's democracy. If they like me, they'll vote for me, and if they don't, they don't, and that's fine." Um, but it kind of going back to what you were saying, I did see it as an opportunity to just try this.
Hmm.
And win or lose, at least I've gotten my ideas out there. And then folks can decide for themselves if they like these ideas and if they like me as the person to execute against these ideas. I did get just about 5 or 6% of the vote, which, quite frankly, was more than I was expecting. I always
Right.
joke, like, I thought it'd just be me, my mom, and my dad voting for me, but we ended up getting, I think it was about 3,600 votes or so, which was about
Okay,
5
that's
5%
fantastic.
of the electorate. And I'm super thankful for everyone who put their trust in me.
Yeah. So what happened then? I mean, so you didn't
Yeah.
win,
Mhm.
you were not necessarily a quote unquote success.
Yeah.
What happens after somebody decides to run? I mean, I think about our community, in a lot of ways, we're not very mature or sophisticated in the sense to say that having a long-term perspective. And
Yeah.
clearly your career was not over
Yeah.
after you did not win that
Yeah.
particular race. So what happens after?
So I want to touch on that point. I think one thing that we really have to focus on is being resilient. I don't see me not winning the mayoral race as a loss for two reasons. Number one, the issues that I focused on during my campaign were then picked up by my opponents
Hmm.
as part of their platforms. And so even though I didn't win the position, I was at least able to move on these issues and get others to move on these issues so that they could carry that forward into the legislation that they wanted to see pass through the city as well. And I think we're better off today for it because we've got a great manufacturing base again.
Hmm.
We've been able to attract a lot of diverse industries into Fremont. We're building more housing across the city as well to help alleviate the housing shortage that we're seeing not just here but across the Bay Area. We've improved on transportation as well. And so there's a lot of things that I wanted to see and that I was advocating for
Hmm.
that did come to fruition. So I see that as a success. Apart from that, I also was able to make a name for myself. I was able to show to the community that I might be 18, but I'm coming with very serious ideas. And so the day after election, I actually got a call from the person who did win, Bill Harrison, and he congratulated me on a well-run race. We actually formed a great relationship
Wow.
since then. Actually, I had a great relationship with everyone who I ran against,
Oh,
and I
wow. Okay.
still I still meet with them
Amazing.
regularly, and they're all great people, and so I'm really fortunate for that. Post-election, because they saw that interest in me and really wanted to capitalize on that, I was able to leverage those relationships to get appointed to the Alameda County Consumer Affairs Commission.
Mhm.
So I got that position when I was 19. That was 2013, I believe. And I worked on that position for the next 3 years before I decided to move back to the Bay Area and run for office again. And that's when I decided to run for the Alameda County Water District.
Yeah. So I want to go back to that.
Yeah,
So, and I think this is really important because part of the goal of this podcast is for me personally, selfishly, and for our community to learn the lessons through the life stories
yeah,
of these the civil servants that we're talking to. And not only did you influence the policy platforms of your competitors and bring about the change that you wanted just by speaking up, putting your hat in the ring. Your very presence created such a dramatic change. But it also positioned you for a long-term career in making change possible. And I think that's the sense of agency that is lacking in a lot of people that I speak to or that I see. They kind of think, well, what's the point? Why run? I'm not going to win anyway.
Yeah,
Why even bother? This is not, and so because they never try, they don't know what ripple effects just the attempt itself might have.
definitely.
And for you, I mean, it's actually very significant, what you were able to accomplish at such a young age, which, mashallah, congratulations on that. May Allah
Thank
accept. So what do you say to that? Or maybe if you have any thoughts on that?
I think you really don't have to look at it as just a win or a loss. It's not black or white. There's a lot of gray area, like you were alluding to. If I can just share a kind of a parallel story,
Sure.
when Zoran Mamdani first decided to run for mayor of New York City,
Yeah.
I'm sure he was facing the same questions because he started polling at 1%.
Hmm.
And he was running against Andrew Cuomo. I mean, he's running against the machine of New York City
Right.
politics. And I'm sure he had a lot of conversations with folks who were like, why even bother? What good is going to come from this? You're going to lose. Why even put your effort into this? But until you try, you don't know. And I think Zoran is such a great case study of that. He went from polling at 1% to winning that seat, beating Cuomo twice in the primary and in
Right.
the general. And I think he has one of the best popularity ratings of any Democratic politician across the US right now. I mean, Trump is a fan of him too, right? So never discount yourself. And again, even if you lose, there's so many lessons learned. There's something to take away as a win from that. And so I always encourage folks, doesn't matter what your experience is, as long as you put your best foot forward, you should you should try and run for office. The caveat I would say with to that is don't run unprepared.
Hmm.
You know, uh, I was paying attention to politics locally
Right.
since I was 7 or 8,
Yeah.
leading up to me running for mayor at 18. I had 10 years of not experience per se, but at least I was able to gain a lot of knowledge around who the key players are, what are the issues related to the city, how will that impact those in our community, and then I was able to form direct policies based on that. As long as you do the homework and you put your best foot forward, I think then you have a reasonable shot to at least try. And I would encourage those folks to run.
Yeah. It sort of reminds me of the story of Maryam alayhi salam
I
when
see.
she was uh, giving birth to Isa. And she is, just this calamity is befalling her that this, she had preserved herself, in worship for her entire life. And now she's being, tested with this child. And the instruction that she got was to shake the palm tree,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you've ever tried to shake a palm tree. It's impossible.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
trunk is sturdy, and it literally makes no sense
Yeah.
why that Allah would tell her to shake the trunk of the palm tree, and yet that was the instruction for her to get relief and to get some dates and whatnot. And or Musa alayhi salam to put his staff in to strike the sea.
Yeah.
Uh, what is that going to do?
Right.
Splish splash, it doesn't
Right.
do anything. But we discount the power that, Allah has, the good that can come about it. And I think it's just a wonderful real life example. Sometimes we hear these stories as fairy tales,
Yeah.
but this is like real life. I mean, you were able to make an impact and to parlay that into other impact as well. So I want to ask you now about that,
Mhm.
about the next step. So you ran for mayor, and then you were on the, I missed the name of it, the
The Alameda County Consumer Affairs Commission.
Consumer Affairs Commission.
Yeah.
So, first of all, what is a commission?
Yeah,
And
sure.
second of all, uh, consumer affairs. Like, say a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. So the Alameda Consumer Affairs Commission is tasked with working with individuals as they have consumer complaints against businesses across Alameda County. Our goal is to try and bridge that gap. If you had a bad experience at a McDonald's or something, or at a store, we want to make sure that we take those consumer complaints and then work with the businesses to rectify that and find a common resolution between the complainant and that business. We also focused on other issues related to firearm safety because across Alameda County, we found that there were many issues related to the sale and storage of firearms, especially in communities in the north part of the county. And so we held a lot of town halls and forums to try and bring the community together to try and teach them about safe ways of storing firearms should they decide that they want those in their own house or in their business, and how to keep them away from younger children who should not be around
Mm,
firearms at all. And so it's kind of a wide breadth of work that we did there. We covered all of Alameda County. It was an appointed position. So this
mhm.
wasn't something I was doing full time. I was still in university at the time as well. And so I got to work on these issues. I got to meet a lot of folks across the community and hear their stories about ways that they would like to see the government better protect them. And then we also got to suggest consumer protection legislation to our county board of supervisors so that they could potentially enact that as well. So it was a great introduction to the mechanics of how the county is run and how that impacts our communities.
So, I want to pick up on a couple of things that you said there. Number one, wait, you were still in school in Southern California,
Yeah.
but you were serving on a commission in Alameda County.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, and actually, this also extends to when I was running for mayor. So when I was running for mayor, I was still in school, and so I would go to school Monday morning. I used to land in LA. I used to be in class till Thursday early afternoon, and then I had a set flight Thursday through Sunday or Thursday through Monday morning. Actually, I would fly back to the Bay Area, and I was doing that every week. Um,
And you were campaigning.
and I was campaigning, and then I would come back for class. I set up my dorm room as a makeshift campaign office,
Oh
which
my
my
gosh.
roommate was very gracious about that. But I had so many USC students who volunteered on my campaign,
Oh wow.
and so it was almost a 24/7 operation. There were constantly folks cycling in and out of our dorm room. I would call home and my parents would be leading the charge here at home,
Wow.
and they were organizing volunteers, helping get fundraising done, and all of that. It was a true team effort. Same with the Consumer Affairs Commission, less so though. So, with the Consumer Affairs Commission, we met once a month.
Mhm.
And most of those meetings were actually done online, even pre Zoom. We had already kind of moved to a hybrid model. So I was able to do those meetings from college.
Wow.
And then when I would come home from the summer, I would attend in person. But I got to maintain my attendance that way. Um, I was still registered to vote in Fremont. That's why I was eligible for these positions and to be able to do so. And had I won the mayoral race, I was fully planning on dropping out from college and doing that
Wow.
full time, or maybe transferring to a local school or something. My parents were not a big fan of that idea, but
I know. USC. Come on.
USC, yeah. But again, I was a little bit naive, but super excited to just put my all into this and really, really try and do what I could for our community.
Yeah. No, and so how much time were you with the Consumer Affairs
That was about
Commission?
3 years.
So you're there 3 years,
Yeah,
and you met. What is it? Monthly? I'm
we met
guessing
we met once a month.
once a
Yeah,
month. So 2 hours a month and 1 hour a month.
usually about an hour to 2 hours. It just depended on how extensive the agenda was.
Okay.
But yeah, not much more time than that, unless we were doing like some special events.
So again, I think this is another thing that people get wrong, or maybe they're just uninformed that with an hour or two a month, you can get involved in your community,
Yeah,
whether it's at the county level or whatever, and actually make a difference, improving the lives, the material impact on the lives of the people who live in your city or in your county or what have you.
exactly. Yes. If I can just kind of touch on that point. So these boards and commissions exist at the county level and at the city level.
Right.
In Alameda County, I think we've got like 100 boards and commissions, all focused on a very particular topic.
Hmm.
I was on the consumer affairs side. We have commission boards and commissions related to planning, to women's affairs, to immigrants' rights, to senior citizens, and also for youth. We have that at the city level as well, not just in
Hmm.
Fremont, but almost every city has these boards and commissions. They meet regularly, but not for much time. That's usually most of these commissions meet just once a month. Sometimes, if they're a little bit more impactful, they might meet twice a month, but you're meeting for an hour or two, but you get to work on these issues that are truly impactful.
Hmm.
And elected officials take the work that these boards and commissions do very seriously. They inform a lot of the research that goes into the policies that are then pushed as well.
Yeah, I think that's like a hidden. What is it like? An elephant in the room, or it's like a secret that most people don't know what it
Right.
takes. And now, even as you're talking about it, I'm like, wait a minute. So of course there are 100 commissions, because let's say I'm a city council. There's no way I could govern a whole city in a weekly meeting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
impossible,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So there has to be some other mechanism. What is the mechanism? Apparently, it's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So they spin up these groups, these boards, these commissions. They
Yeah.
assign people, like you were
Yeah,
assigned,
actually, they're appointed, so all you have to
appointed.
do is apply, and usually it's like a county supervisor or a mayor will just, uh, read the applications and they'll decide yes or no, and what I would recommend to folks, is just meet with the person who has that yes, no vote, get coffee with them, tell them why you're interested in that commission, and most of the time, they don't have enough applicants to fill the vacant seats. So they are super eager for anybody who's interested in these positions to just at least show that interest to them so that they can then appoint you.
So, I mean, I didn't even realize this, but you're saying this is almost like I don't want to say job application, but there is an element of
There
kind
is.
of
Yeah,
selling yourself, if you will.
sure. It's usually like 1 or 2-page application. I mean, these are very, very simple and straightforward. They just wanna verify that you live in the community that you want to represent, and they'll ask you a few questions about why you're interested. It will take you no more than a half an hour to an hour to fill these applications out, but again, the impact that you can have is is just enormous. It
Well,
really, really is enormous. And so for that small time commitment and that small little bit of time you have to spend applying to this, you can work on some issues that have a tremendous impact.
yeah, I love that. And again, that's something that I don't think people know about. Where did you find the commission, or how did you learn about it?
These are all available on every county and city website.
Oh,
So if you just search Alameda County boards and commissions, you will find every board and commission as well as all the vacancies. Similar to City of Fremont, just search Fremont boards and commissions, and you will see everyone that they have available and when they'll have vacancies open. And so it's pretty straightforward to find them.
yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. That's a great tip. And
Absolutely, yeah.
highly encourage anyone out there to get involved in this way. And it seems like it's a very
Definitely.
low lift but high impact.
Exactly. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to the community. If you do think, like, hey, I want to make a career out of public service, I might want to run for office down the road, starting at one of these boards and commissions is a great place to start so that you can build your persona. You can start to work on these issues. You can see how the sausage is made inside as well. You can kind of see the internal dynamics and mechanics of local government. and then you can use that to run for office after that.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that earlier, that you learned a lot about how the system works
Definitely.
just by being a
Yeah.
part of it,
Mhm.
right? It's like any other
Yeah, just like
job or
any other
company.
job,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. You kind of need to do that. Okay. So you did that for 3 years.
Yes.
And then did you just, your term expired, or you decided time was up, or?
So, then I decided to run for the Alameda County Water District.
Uh-huh.
That was now 2016. So, if you recall, 2015, California had a major drought. And so,
Yes.
water was top of mind for all of us. We
Right.
were super interested in conservation. People were not watering their lawns.
Yeah.
People were ripping out their lawns and replacing them with drought tolerant plants, which
Right.
I encourage everybody to do so. I'm a big
Still on the
fan.
job,
Still on the
huh?
job, still on the job. Um, but water policy was kind of top of mind for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
If you know anything about California water, you will know that it is governed mainly by folks who are retired.
Mm.
There's this quip in California that you go to a water board to die on the water board. I
Oh
hate
my
that,
gosh.
but it's almost considered like a retirement job. Um, no disrespect to anybody, but there were almost no young people
Mhm.
involved in this space. Um, Considering how important water is in California, I
Right.
mean, our county and city lines are generally drawn based on water rights that were determined back in the late 1800s, called riparian rights. To this day, that law governs so much of California, and protecting that resource is vital, not just for consumption for us as residents, but if you think about everything depends on the free flow of water. You need it to drink, to bathe, to cook, to irrigate your lawns or your plants. And it's not just us humans who depend on this. Plants depend on this. We have major waterways that run through California. Animals depend on the protection of our water resources as well. And so it's incredibly vital that we have folks that are super interested in that space running for that, and helping craft policy around that. But also that we have a diversity of folks who are involved in water policy and water legislation.
Yeah. And again, I see just like a pattern in you, if I may, that is that you really care about what is the most critical issue facing people, facing our world, our community,
Exactly.
and wanting to roll up your sleeves and dive right in and make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, dive right in, no pun
No
intended,
pun intended.
it's a lot of fun, and this was a way that I really got to have an impact on the community, on everybody, I wanna make sure that when you turn on your tap, you have running water.
Right.
I share this story often. My family comes from India, and I get a chance to go and visit India frequently. And in certain parts of the country, actually in large parts of the country, when I go and stay with family, we don't have running water, or not in the way that we conceive it. So when I go to like Chennai, for instance, we have water generally for an hour a day, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And when that water truck pulls up, they'll fill a tank on the roof. Everybody in the building is fighting for that water. And
Mm.
so you have to be up at 6 a.m. We take every pot and pan and bucket we can find around the house, and we fill everything with water. And we use that water for bathing. We do bucket showers. We use it for brushing our teeth, for cooking, for washing our clothes, and all of that. On top of that, that water is not what we call potable, meaning
Hmm.
it's not safe for us to drink.
Right.
You have to boil it twice before it's safe to drink.
Not once.
I would say I'm just overly
Okay.
precautious, but it goes to the point of we kind of take water for granted here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can leave your tap on for 24 hours, and you're not going to worry about running out of water. You're not going to worry about that tap running dry. You might worry about your water bill, but that's about it.
Hmm.
And when I turn on my tap and I pour a glass of water, I drink I drink straight tap water, and I encourage everyone to do so because it is the safest, cleanest water that you can find around the globe. And a point of pride for me, Alameda County Water District, a couple years ago now, actually won a competition across the country for best tasting tap water.
Nice,
And
nice.
so I really hang my hat on that. I'm like, we're doing some great work here.
Amazing.
But it just goes to show you the reality that we live in is unique to us.
Hmm.
Even compared to other parts of the country, when you think of like Flint, Michigan, for instance, where
Sure.
they did not have access to clean water, that was because of policy decisions that were made over decades, really, that led to the situation that they were in at that time. And so I took that as a call to action.
Yeah. And so you jumped in,
Yeah.
you made a difference, clearly. Tell me, what is life like there? I mean, is it and you're the president of the water
I'm
board,
the
or did you start
I'm currently I'm the president of the board of directors.
of the board
So
of directors?
I was elected to become a member of the board of directors, and then we have a rotating presidency.
I
So
see.
everyone gets to be president for a year, and when you're president, you don't get any special voting authority or anything like that, but you get to help kind of guide the agenda and the priorities of the district.
Okay. So same question. I mean, are you meeting weekly on this? Like,
Yeah.
what's the
So
day to day life of a?
S yeah, so, all of us on the water district are, generally, most of us are employed or a couple of folks are retired. We're a five-person board,
Mhm.
and so, the five of us are helping guide policy decisions related to the Alameda County Water District, which, by the way, is kind of a misnomer. We just cover Fremont, Newark, and Union City, so
Oh,
the south part of Alameda County. I like to describe it as from the time it rains to the time it reaches your tap, that entire process is under our purview.
mhm.
So our job is to source water, to clean it, to build the infrastructure to deliver it, and then to charge you for it. Those are kind of the main aspects that we focus on. We have a diverse water portfolio, so we're getting water, not just our local sources, but we're getting a lot of water from the Sacramento Delta.
Right.
We're getting water from Yosemite, from the Hetch Hetchy system that's owned and operated by the city of San Francisco. And then we have our local supply as well. And we have one of the most complex systems of any district, especially of our size. And it's a lot of fun, but we want to make sure that we're protecting that resource for generations to come.
And so, tell me about some of the policies that you've enacted as during your tenure.
Yeah, yeah. So, one of the things that I'm most proud about, when I first joined, we implemented a project called Help on Tap, or our HOT program. One of the things that I'm very cognizant of and really wanted to focus on was making sure that nobody had to pick between paying their water bill and putting food on their table.
Mm,
Because water, it's relatively inexpensive compared to other things on our budget, but there are many families that are in our district that are on fixed income or are low income, and for them, even a few percentage point difference in their water bill makes a big impact on them. And so we created this Help on Tap program that basically pays the entire service charge for folks who are lower income within our communities. And we've
wow.
continued to up the amount of bill credit that they get along with the eligibility so we can cover more people and give them more money on a monthly basis to try and cover their water bill. I'm super proud of that. We want to make water affordable because water is a human right at the end of the day. Everybody needs it, and we wanna make sure that folks are not concerned about having to pay their water bill and are not rationing because of that. Conservation's great, to protect our environment, but it shouldn't be a reason why you're not drinking water or are, not showering and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm super proud about that. We've done seismic retrofits of our entire system. We're currently working through our entire system, and so we're making sure that um, people say if we have a major earthquake, but really it's when we have a major
Hmm.
earthquake,
Hmm.
our system is resilient to that. We know that we will have major main breaks across our system. There's just no way to protect against that. We want to make sure that we have resiliency so after that happens, we can bring our system back up to full force in as quick a time as possible. And then we've really focused on implementing more technology so that we can better interface with our customer base. My background is cybersecurity, and so I'm really focused on making sure that as we bring in more technology, we're bringing in the security rationale behind that as well to protect user data, to protect credit card information, and just protect our district overall. So those are kind of the main things that we've worked on over the last decade that I'm really proud of. But there's so many other projects that we're working on that are each unique and each fun and interesting in their own right.
And how do you, I mean, clearly this is not your area of expertise, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
think you studied this in school,
No,
maybe.
no, I studied supply like, mainly, like, supply chain and then ERP systems, so
Okay.
nothing related to water.
Yeah. How do you decide what is the right policy, or what is, I mean, maybe seismic safety is maybe commonsensical, but
Yeah.
maybe some of the other ones, like how do you know where to invest or what to focus on, or how do you come up with these ideas?
Yeah. So first of all, we have 320 some odd staff members, and our staff are top notch, absolutely excellent. And so we take a lot of guidance from them. They're living this day to day.
Mm,
Our board meets once a month regularly, and then we have kind of a scattering of other meetings throughout the month as well, kind of averaging about 1 to 2 meetings per week. So
mhm.
we're not living this day to day. Our staff are. And so we take a lot of guidance from them on what's appropriate, what should we expect, what's coming down the pike, and how do we implement that or protect ourselves against that locally here in our district. On top of that, it is incumbent on upon us to do the research and do homework.
Mhm.
And so when I first joined, they were like, "Hey, this is going to be like drinking from a fire hose. You're going to get a
No pun
lot of
intended.
info. No pun intended. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of information. You're not going to learn it in a day or in a week or in a month. A lot of this is going to come with time, but you have to do some self study." I would say it took me 6 months to a year to really get grounded.
Mm,
I mean, it is heavy material. These are folks you're working with folks who have and a lot of times been on these boards or been in staff for decades. And so they just happen to have a lot more background and information on these issues. But the key thing is study yourself and go and know who to talk to and ask questions to. And I'm not shy about that at all. I don't care if it's considered a dumb question. I'm going to ask it and just make sure that I have a solid grounding before I make any decision.
was there ever any time, whether in your current position or even on the Consumer Affairs Commission, that there was maybe a conflict where you had a certain perspective
Mhm.
on a policy issue, let's say, and someone else maybe had a strong opposition, and you had to work that out, or
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
how does that work when you come to actual decision making?
Yeah.
It's not just a dictatorship, right? I mean, it's a
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're a 5-person board, so majority wins. We actually had a board meeting just last night where
no.
that got a little bit contentious. I would say at ACWD in particular, our board is very good about trying to drive towards consensus. So I know I know kind of what the other directors, what their perspectives are. I generally know how they're going to view some of these issues. If we know we have a contentious issue, we try to find a way to bridge that gap. So last night, for instance, we implemented a plan called our Water Resource Master Plan. It's a 25-year plan dictating, not dictating, but at least giving us a guideline for how we want to approach additional water sources, how we want to protect our existing water supplies, and just kind of general ways that we think we will need to adapt over the next couple of decades. We had one director who strongly objected to one of the projects that was in the plan. And so we wanted to make sure that he knew and that the community knew we're not um, we're not making any commitments in this plan. We're not tied to this specifically. We gave ourselves enough leeway so that if that project isn't worthwhile for us to pursue, we can easily back out of it. We're not committed to that, and so we try and drive towards consensus that way. So we take everyone's viewpoint into account. Now, that's not to say that you're going to bridge every gap. Like yesterday for the water resources master plan, he did vote against it, which is fine, and that's again the beauty of democracy. Um, but we do try to at least find some level of consensus because we all have our we all have our community at heart. We're all trying to work towards a common good.
Hmm.
We have different ways of approaching that. We have different perspectives, and so it's our job to just try and leverage our perspectives, negotiate with one another, and then try and find some consensus.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful approach to addressing that. And I think one of the things that strikes me about that is you are, I mean, 25-year plan, that's significant.
Definitely,
And you're thinking long term as
yeah.
well about the needs of the community. And I guess how do you in your mind balance that as an individual, as Aziz? Like you have taken certain roles,
Mhm,
you've been focusing on certain short term, let's say, impact,
mhm.
but there's also the long term. So how do you balance between that short term and that long term impact that you're trying to have just in your own mind of like how do you think about that?
There's always a give and take. I consider it like almost, uh, what's that rope game?
Tug of war.
Tug of war. Yeah, it's like a tug of war between short-term impact and long-term
Hmm.
benefit. Um, when it comes to I'll give you a direct example. When it comes to our rates, for instance, for us to meet our long-term objectives and obligations and for us to invest in our system, we might need to raise our rates on an annual basis,
Mm.
beyond inflation. We expect that we're going to have to raise our rates according to inflation each year, at least to meet kind of what our current spend is. But when we do have these major projects that come up, we potentially will need to raise rates to be able to make those investments. In the short term, that's going to have a lot of pain on every one of our ratepayers. And so we're always trying to be very cognizant of that. We When it comes to rates specifically, I'm always trying to keep it within a range that is just, if anything, maybe just a little bit above CPI,
Hmm.
but not large enough where it's going to make a material impact on the majority of our ratepayers. But we can at least use those funds to invest in our future and make sure that again we're protecting this resource and the infrastructure behind it for generations to come. I think about it this way. I'm going to be drinking this water for decades, inshallah. Um,
Inshallah.
I think, my kids, when I have kids or my grandkids, I'm hoping that they stay in this neighborhood and they're going to be using this as well.
Mm.
When we put a pipe into the ground, we don't want to touch it for 50 years. That's the idea. If you're putting in a pipe in the ground and you're having to dig it up in 10 years, that's a failed project. And so we want to make sure that the decisions we make on the infrastructure and the kind of rationale behind that is going to be there for the long haul. And that we're not going to have to go and rip and replace it constantly because that costs more money. It's not a wise way to approach infrastructure. So, this tug of war between short term and long term thinking, it plays into every aspect of what we do, and we try and find a balance so that it's amenable, in the short term, but we're still achieving our long term objectives as well.
And building on that, especially here we are in Silicon Valley,
Yeah,
where change is breakneck speed,
yeah, definitely.
and I think a lot of people, especially in those circles, may criticize government
Hmm.
and say government is slow,
Yeah,
government is ineffective. These are kind of the things like If you're smart, you have a startup, or
Yeah,
you go work at, insert, tech company here.
totally.
And what do you say to people who want to change the world,
Yeah.
you know, in one sense or another, and they want to do it quickly and they want, tangible results now. Um, and they criticize the government about being slow and ineffective.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that?
It's a question on leadership. Kind of going back to Zoran. Zoran showed he just finished his 100 days in office.
Hmm.
He filled 100,000 potholes. He got universal childcare, things that people were debating for decades before and
Hmm.
were like, oh, these are pie in the sky ideas. We could never do this. He did it in 3.5 months. It really does come down to, do you have the right leadership to drive that? Now, one caveat I'll make to that, you don't necessarily want your government to be moving at breakneck speeds. This idea of break things and ask questions later, that kind of works in the private sector, though we're seeing the shortcomings of that there too.
Yeah.
You don't want your government on the cutting edge of all of this stuff, because if something fails, it's not just one or two people that are impacted. It's not just a couple of customers who
Right.
voluntarily chose to be impacted by that.
Right.
It is every single person in the community. So, for instance, like I come from tech. Um, I don't want the latest and greatest in tech at the water district. I want something that's been used in private industry and in public industry, that's been tested, that's gone through its faults and has been reworked
Mm,
to fix those issues before I bring that to the water district. Because once we put something in, software, hardware, whatever it might be, again, we don't want to touch it for a long, long time. And if it breaks, that has a massive impact on water delivery,
mm,
on customer service, on environmental issues. The ramifications are massive. And so that's how I would respond to that is, you don't necessarily want your government breaking everything. There's a balance to be struck between innovation and meeting the requirements of what it means to be an effective legislator.
yeah. And it sounds like there's a lot at stake.
There's a lot at stake. Oh my god, yeah.
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 So you really can't afford to
Yeah.
take those risks
It,
in that sphere,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. If I put in some software that's never been tested before and all of a sudden it stops all water delivery and you turn on your tap and there's no water. I mean that that
That's
that's
catastrophic.
catastrophic
Yeah.
for us. So we don't want that. We want something that's well tested. It's been through rigorous kind of use cases and then we will consider it.
Yeah. So kind of building on that, let's talk about success. Uh, what does success mean to you personally? And has your definition of success changed as you've been getting more and more involved?
Success to me is measured by the impact that we have on the community. I'm I like being more of a behind the scenes guy personally. I found that this role, like for instance at the water district, it's a great way for me to have an impact on my community. It's a great way for me to leverage my knowledge and experience and be able to give back to the community to prepare for the long term. But the water district is not, it's not a popular job. Like nobody knows who their water district directors are.
Yeah,
Like folks who know me know that I do this work, but the average person hasn't probably hasn't even heard of the Alameda County Water District, much less who's kind of governing that board.
probably.
Um, and that's fine. Like you want to be able to elect someone who's a great operator, but you don't. If our boardroom is packed, it's because we did something wrong, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's not a bad thing, um, but that's how I look at success. Are we having a tangible positive impact on our community? Are we delivering better water, safer water, cleaner water? Are we delivering it with a better system behind that? Are we protecting this resource from environmental disaster or regulatory changes or anything like that for the long term? That to me is success. And I think that's how I think about kind of politics in general. When I lost the mayor's race, like I said, I didn't see that as a loss because I still got to impact some of the work that was actually then implemented in our
Right.
community. That's great. I didn't necessarily need to be the vessel to deliver that. I just wanted to make sure that those objectives were met and delivered.
Yeah.
And so that's how I view success. And of course, that's changed over the years. I think a lot of folks, when they first come into politics, think, if I lose this election, that's it. I'm done,
Right.
and that's a total loss. But I don't think you should ever look at things that way. Um, I, yeah, I mean that's kind of how I think about success, and that's how I like to measure success.
So just kind of building on that, what are the biggest misconceptions people have about success when it comes to civic or political work?
I think a lot of times it's ego driven. Folks want to be the ones to do something or to drive that change, but really in public service, you really have to let go of ego.
Hmm.
And I think that's definitely easier said than done. And when I look across the political spectrum, I see a lot of folks that are driven by ego, unfortunately. And so that's something that I hope we can break through. I feel like our younger generation is doing a great job of that. Not even myself, but like even folks younger than me, like the Gen Zers.
Mm.
A lot of them are starting to run for office, but they're not running for office for themselves. They truly are running to move an agenda. And I think that's what I would love to see out of our politicians. Focus on the agenda. Focus on what you are doing for the average person, how you are protecting immigrants, how you're protecting minorities, how you're, in my case, how you're protecting these water resources. Whatever your role is, think about it from that perspective about the agenda you're trying to advance, not your own personal win or gain.
Hmm. And I think that's kind of like the tension, right? Because for a lot of people, I mean, even, in our community, we're kind of brought up to think about ourselves, our own
Yeah.
success,
Hmm.
whatever that means. Um, getting a job and a career, doctor, lawyer, engineer, as you said. Um, and we're always thinking about our career advancement. But then here you are, you're doing this on the side, right?
Yeah.
Effectively. Like
Yeah.
this is not a full-time
Yeah. I work a
gig.
full time job
You have a job,
otherwise.
right?
Yeah.
Like you have a normal job.
Yeah.
And so how do you think about, kind of like the giving back, this contribution that you're making, which is fantastic, but also your own personal aims or goals or advancement.
It I would say in some cases it's a sacrifice. I'm sacrificing time I would otherwise spend with my wife and my family. I'm sacrificing just general social time or even downtime. Just to kind of give you a sense of my schedule. I start my work at 6 a.m. every morning. So I'm usually up by 5:15,
Wow.
5:30.
Okay.
I usually
You're in
could
the office.
I work from
Oh,
home,
remote.
but
Okay.
I work at a cybersecurity startup,
Okay.
and so I'm taking calls starting 6 a.m.
Wow.
I usually finish my day around 3 or 4 o'clock, and then those days that I have water district meetings, those usually start between 3 to 6 o'clock, and then they'll go till 11 p.m., midnight,
Wow.
and then I come home, eat dinner, and go to sleep and start the next day. And public service is a 7 days a week job. Like water delivery, for instance, doesn't stop on Saturday or Sunday, right?
Right.
It's a 24/7 job, holidays as well. We're often getting calls about main breaks or there's a storm coming in or, we've had seismic activity. We had a big earthquake just
Right.
a few weeks ago. And that was at like 1:30 in the morning. And so we're getting emails like within the hour of like, hey, this is what happened. These are the impacts that it had. If you want to get into public service, it really has to be driven by a passion for it. I
Hmm.
have a deep passion for public service. I really love this stuff. I like my work. I love public service. I love water district stuff. It really energizes me. And so that's also something that I look for when I'm talking to other folks that want to get involved in public service, what's driving you? If this is a resume builder, this is not the career for you. I'm telling you straight up. Like, don't do this to pad your resume or to put it on a college application or something. That's not the right motivation. Do this because you truly want to give back and are super focused on the work itself. And that's when you'll see true success, both for yourself and folks around you will see that as well. And people can tell when you're doing something for yourself versus for the community at large.
Yeah, and that's a great segue actually into another question I had for you, which is, and we haven't talked much about it, but it's sort of the spiritual side of this, the
Yes.
Islamic side, which
Yeah.
is, you talked about ego, and now we're talking about sincerity.
Mhm.
How do you have that? Uh, you're doing this purely for the sake of having an impact, serving Allah. Doing it for serving His creation.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how your personal spirituality has been affected in this journey?
Yeah. Um, so I come from a Shia background, and within Shia theology, there's one particular story that we're often reminded of, and that's the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And when he was in the Battle of Karbala, one of the main stories that we know is that he was denied water. Him and his companions were denied water for 3 days leading up to his murder. That story has guided me in so much of the work that I've done. And it's a big reason why I decided that I want to start my career here at the Water
Wow.
District. I had a conversation. It was, I think, the day before Ashura, which is, our day of remembrance of Imam Hussein. And I had a conversation with my mom at the dinner table about how how we try and embody the values of Islam in our own life. And when I was thinking about the sacrifices that Imam Hussein made and that our prophets have continuously reminded of, I wanted to try to find a way to start my career in public service embodying that and
Mm,
trying to push for that. And so the water district was a natural place for me to start my career. I love the fact that I get to work on something as basic as water.
mhm,
Like I mentioned earlier, water is a human right. It is incumbent on us to protect this, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come, for the other species that rely on water as well. And I really do believe that public service isn't just an option for us, it is an obligation for us. God commands us to protect those that need protection, to protect those that might not have the ability to defend themselves. God commands us to be righteous in all that we do and to strive for justice. And when I look around the not just our own nation, but across the globe, we're seeing injustice pop up around the globe. Um, Here, just domestically, we have our own modern day version of the Gestapo called ICE,
mhm,
tearing apart our communities. Then we have a madman in the White House who is bombing countries around the globe, kidnapping citizens, kidnapping leaders of foreign governments. Um, I mean, this is not just. This is not leading with justice.
right.
And now more recently we're seeing him attack religious institutions as well. He's going after the Pope because the Pope said that we shouldn't be for war. The Pope is talking about an anti-war message. And so from all of these aspects, I'm seeing that we need better leadership at every level because the system cannot survive this. And if the system's got to go, the system's got to go in whatever countries that might be applicable to. um, but we can strive for better, and it is incumbent on us as Muslims to advocate for that and to be on the front lines of that. When when we see injustice, we should be putting our bodies on the line. I truly believe that Allah has commanded that of us, and I hope we all take that as a call to action.
So I love that. And I think what's great about that is you are really living your values and letting that guide you. And I really admire just how you are at the forefront, as you said, kind of putting yourself out there, um, in living your values really. And I think in our community, I would guess, a lot of people have a mindset of, you know what, I'm going to take care of me, myself, and I, or
Mhm,
me and my family,
mhm.
or, I'm just going to look out for myself. I mean, I think probably a lot of our families, when they came to this country, that's the
They
reason why
had
they came.
they had to also,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So nothing wrong necessarily inherently with doing that.
yeah.
But I think what you're saying is there's a higher spiritual directive,
Yes.
which is to put yourself out there and to serve in this way. So I guess my question is, how do we bring success, or the definition of success, more in line in our community, more in line with this Islamic definition of success, or Allah's definition, I would argue, of success?
Yeah, so, one of the things I'm always cognizant of when folks immigrate to this country, they do have they do have a different set of priorities. They do have to look out about um, setting themselves up and their families up for success here. They do have to be um, a little bit, kind of look a little bit more inward before they can start to look outward. They need to set up those roots because once you have solid roots, that's when the tree can really start to
Hmm.
grow. And so I don't fault anyone for wanting to just focus on themselves, their career, and setting up those roots so that their next generation then has more flexibility on what they can consider possible. Uh, my parents too, they worked 9 to 5 jobs. They were really focused on making sure that me and my sister had great educations, that we were able to find a good job, that we were able to get married. That was their focus. Was
Hmm.
they poured everything in to me and my sister. They didn't have the luxury of then being able to also add in, these huge public service commitments on top of that.
Right.
But they set us up with those deep roots so that my sister and I could do that. And I see that as a continuation of the work that they did, and hopefully the next generation, they get to do even more and build upon that success so that they can reach higher. And so that's kind of how I would approach this question of, how do you kind of bring public service and that sense of success into congruence with one another. I think it is a generational thing. It does take time,
Hmm.
um, but I see it happening. When I go to MCA, for instance, I'm like, man, I think a lot of these kids are going to run for office. I hope they do,
Inshallah.
inshallah.
Yeah.
But I see them talk about social issues in a way that even when I was, 15, 16, I wasn't thinking that deeply about these
Wow.
issues in the way that they are. But they're so interested, they're so motivated. When I go to protests, it is younger folks younger
Hmm.
than me who are the main people who make up the main demographic at these protests. And I think we're starting to see that happen more and more. We're starting to see Gen Z start to run for office. And, whether they win or lose is besides the point, but they have the confidence and they're competent enough to be able to run for office. And so many of them are kids of immigrants. Many
Hmm.
of them are immigrants themselves, of course, as well. But so many of them are kids of immigrants whose parents are now pushing them to also consider careers in public service. And so I'm hoping we move away from just engineer, doctor, lawyer, and add in politician or public servant.
Yeah.
Really, I hate the word politician, by the way.
Same.
Public servant.
Yeah.
But let's add that in as a career that we really push our kids to, because we need more of us in that space.
What do you think would happen if we had a generation, or the next generation, or even if we just had more
Yeah.
young people, uh, in these positions, whether boards and commissions and eventually elected officials? What do you think would happen?
I think of the like what is it, 550 people in Congress. I think like 400 of them would be out tomorrow, because they don't reflect us. They don't reflect our priorities. So that's why I'm excited about the next generation running for office and getting really involved from now, because they have a different set of priorities. They tend to be a little bit more progressive. They're anti-war. They want to see a country that serves its people, not a country that serves the 1%. And I think you see a lot of folks that are currently in office, they have a different set of priorities. That's going to shift
Mm,
over time. And I think we're already starting to see that, but I'm even more excited by the prospect of a younger demographic and a more diverse demographic getting more and more involved in public service. And I don't expect that this is going to change overnight. I don't think anybody should think about these things in that way. This takes time, it takes investment, it takes resilience. You are going to take more losses than wins,
mm,
but every win counts more than that loss. And so you have to continue to build on that success. And I think I'm optimistic. I'm very much an optimist. I do truly believe that we have Allah's guidance, and He's watching over us, and I think with that guidance and with a clear intention and a clear heart, we can move forward in a really positive way.
yeah, I love that. Let's just say somebody came up to you, they saw this podcast or they heard it, and they said, Aziz, I want to do what you do.
Mhm.
They're young, bright eyed,
Yeah.
optimistic,
Yes.
they
Yeah.
want to make a difference.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel like I'm not doing enough. I want to make an impact. What do you tell them?
So this happens quite frequently,
Oh, really?
actually,
Okay.
and I love when these conversations come up. Normally, I ask them, why are you interested? What's the motivation behind it? Because everyone's motivation is a little bit different, and they're all unique in that way. Um, and I think that's just so beautiful. I personally, anytime somebody wants to run for office, I like to meet with them for coffee, go through kind of what their ideas are, help them conceptualize that from a pragmatic perspective or an operational perspective as somebody who's gone from idea to implementation.
Hmm.
And then I try and get them connected with the right folks so that they can start on that journey. And I always remind everyone, it's not going to happen overnight.
Mm,
Even for me, it was from like 7 to 18, just being kind of involved as a volunteer, losing at 18, getting a small position at 19, and then at 22, actually winning office. And I've been there for a decade now trying to build my experience. And so
hmm.
even for someone like myself, this has been years and years of time and investment and learning, and that's what's gonna set me up for the future if I continue down this route. And so I always try and remind folks, especially younger folks, don't jump into this thinking you're gonna make a massive difference tomorrow
Mm,
as much as you would like to. It is going to take a lot of time and investment, but when you do it, alhamdulillah, the rewards are
yeah.
are incredible.
So, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is really like come in at the ground floor, like
Definitely. Yeah,
have sort of temper your expectations,
for
but
sure.
also be optimistic that you can have an impact.
Exactly.
So, are we talking like kind of similar process to yours, like an appointed position first, and then eventually going into kind of an elected? Like, is that the path?
Generally speaking, like even outside of myself, when I look at a lot of other electeds, that's generally how they started out. They
Hmm.
started out on a board or commission, or maybe they worked for a nonprofit for a long time and just kind of got rooted in the community, learned the ins and outs of governance, and then they use that to run for office. The other thing I always point out, the majority of people who are in Congress today, they lost one or two times before they won.
Oh, okay.
That tends to be the case. Usually, they say you got to run 3 times to actually win.
Oh, wow.
I think like Ro Khanna, for instance, he
Oh,
also
true. Yeah.
ran twice before he finally won on the third time.
Yeah.
There's a great case in Fremont. There's a guy named Vinnie Bacon. He ran for city council like 3 times before he won. The fourth time he ran, most people thought he was an incumbent. They just
Oh, they
kept
just
seeing him
assumed.
run, and so they were like, "Oh, Vinny's already in office. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote for him because he's the incumbent." And so that it does take a process. It does take time, but you'll see that effort pay off.
Gosh, you must have to have thick skin in order to
Oh, you do.
stick through it.
I'll be honest with you. I I do get a lot of negative comments. I do get a
Uh,
uh, I don't want to call it like hate mail per se, but like you do get messages
about the
on.
water?
I would say less so about water specifically,
Oh,
but as a Muslim in office,
I see.
especially given that I'm one of just a handful of elected Muslims in California,
Yeah. Yeah.
highly visible, you do get to become a target of some of those attacks. I try not to focus on them. I really don't like talking about them too much because 99.9% of the folks that I've talked to, whether they like me or not or agree with me or not, they're lovely people and I love serving them.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, Aziz, I want to thank you for taking the time with us today. My
Absolutely.
last question, or
Yes,
actually, second to last question.
sure.
Uh, what's next for you? I mean, what are you? I mean, it's been a decade,
Yeah.
right? So what now?
Yeah, great timing on that question. So just a couple of weeks ago, I shared that I'm planning on running for Fremont City Council
Okay.
to represent District 4, which is the district that I live in. It's like Parkmont and Gardeno, a little bit of Central Fremont, and then a lot of Mission. Um, I want to leverage my experience in governance to be able to take that to the city. It's an open seat right now. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to serve the city. I want to really focus on improving our parks. There's a lot of opportunity for us to better use underutilized land across the city as well, and to use that to create community gardens because we
Mm,
do have a hunger crisis across not just Fremont but across the Bay Area, and I want to see our government actually put a lot of focus on addressing that. And then affordability
mhm.
across housing, across other goods and services. That tends to be a really common thing that folks are complaining about right now. And I think the city can do a lot to address that. So I'm excited to at least throw my hat in the ring, offer my perspective, and inshallah, maybe I'll get to work on those issues in a more formal role.
Inshallah. Well, we pray for your success that you're
I
able
mean,
to bring about impact wherever you are, however whatever form that takes.
thank you.
Um, last question for you:
Yes.
what does it mean to you to live out your deen and your duty in today's world?
That's such a great question. For me, this is not an option, this is an obligation. And so being able to do this service in whatever capacity I get to, I feel like I am serving out my purpose for being here and the purpose that Allah has assigned to me. And wherever that takes me, I'm a happy camper. I'm really happy to just make the impact wherever I am. um, it's very fulfilling. It's very, very rewarding. I go to sleep very happy about the work that I got to work on that day and excited to look forward to the next day. That's a true blessing. And I thank God for that opportunity. And I look forward to hopefully getting to continue in this space because I really, really do enjoy it. I really do love it.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Aziz, for your perspective. I mean, this has been such an interesting conversation for me. I've learned so
Absolutely.
much from you. And
And
I,
thank you. I think this is a great opportunity to highlight the work that Muslims are doing and this intersection of deen and dunya and deen and public service in particular. And so I appreciate you bringing me on today.
no, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening to the Deen and Duty podcast.